World Cup winner Kevin Grosskreutz playing 5th-tier football in Germany, Liverpool legend Martin Škrtel playing 8th-tier football in Slovakia, and Inter Milan treble winner Maicon plying his trade in San Marino. Those are just 3 of the inclusions who featured in the 4 previous videos that I've made, over the last 4 years, about former stars of the beautiful game who, contrary to popular opinion, haven't yet hung up their boots, but are in fact still ploughing on with their careers, just in much more humble surroundings. Well, it's 2025 now, it has been over 15 months since the last instalment, and there is a fresh intake of big-name players now playing on park pitches covered in dog turds, or something not too far off. Since our last look, former Spurs duo and French and Brazilian internationals, Pascal Chimbonda and Sandro, have played 10th and 7th tier football in England respectively, for Skelmersdale United in Lancashire in Chimbonda's case, as a player-manager, and for lowly Harbour Town in Leicestershire in Sandro's. Both players have since departed, so weren't eligible for this 7, but it will be interesting to see where their careers take them next. I mean, Chimbonda is only 46, so you can't rule out an international recall for France with a good run of form. Elsewhere, former Championship bagsmen Grant Holt and Leroy Lita, now aged 40 and 43, are currently playing 7th and 9th tier football for Barwell and Dereham Town in the Southern League Premier Division Central and the Eastern Counties League Premier Division. Ex-England under-21 international Marvin Sordell recently returned to football following 5 years out of the game, with Kettering Town in the 7th-tier Southern Premier League Division Central, and former Hull City and Burnley man George Boyd also came out of retirement a little over a year ago, following 2 years out of the game, joining 7th-tier Wythenshawe Town. Former Liverpool man Jordan Ibe, meanwhile, who John Aldridge once claimed would be better than Raheem Sterling, and who Bournemouth signed for a club record fee in 2016, recently joined 8th tier Hungerford Town in Berkshire. On the continent, meanwhile, Gianluigi Buffon's former international deputy Federico Marchetti, who won 11 caps for Italy and played nearly 200 times for Lazio, now plays his club football in Malta for a team called Marseille, and Daniel Pudil, who won 35 caps for the Czech Republic, returned to England in 2022 to join 9th tier Hallam, who are one of the oldest football clubs in the world. Hopefully that sets the tone then for what is to come, and, as always, my aim is to set as high a bar as possible for both the terms former stars and really low level. Playing in Ligue 2, Serie C, or even League 2 now won't cut the mustard, and nor will merely having played top-flight football in some stage during their prime, which is why some of those examples that I just mentioned missed out. Without further ado then, who would be eligible if he were playing at a really low level, but unfortunately, he is currently without a club and has now, though I hope I'm wrong, probably retired. Here are 7 former stars from the world of football who, in the year of our Lord 2025, now play at a really low level. 7th, Charlie Austin. Was Charlie Austin a superstar footballer? I ummed and ahed about this one for a while. He never played European or international football, but in the 2014-15 season, Austin scored 18 goals in 35 Premier League games for a relegated Queen's Park Rangers side. That put him 4th in the Premier League scoring charts that season, above Wayne Rooney, Alexis Sanchez and Eden Hazard, and trailing only Sergio Aguero, Harry Kane and Diego Costa. It's not bad company to be in. Kane was the only Englishman to outscore Austin that season, and only by 3 goals for a team that finished 5th, while Austin's QPR team literally finished rock bottom of the league on only 30 points, having won just 8 games all season. In that sense, although he did win a call-up, he was unfortunate never to win an England cap. Austin scored 43% of QPR's goals that season, and he was directly involved in a whopping 57% of them. Andy Johnson for Crystal Palace in the 2004-05 season is the only player to have scored more goals for a relegated club during the Premier League era. That was undoubtedly his peak, but we ought not distill Austin's career down to that single season alone. A non-league player until the age of 20, who combined football with bricklaying, Austin scored 37 goals in 65 games for Swindon Town, 45 goals in 90 games for Burnley, and 48 goals in 89 games during his first stint with QPR. Stints at Southampton, West Brom, and returns to both QPR and Swindon. Either side of a season in Australia followed, but at the end of last season, in which he scored 14 goals for League Two Swindon, Austin was released. Initially keen on remaining in the Football League, Austin received offers from clubs in the north of England, but he didn't want to uproot his family again, aged 35. All summer, fellow former Southampton striker and Premier League star James Beattie, who is now the director of football at 7th tier AFC Totton, had been asking Austin to come and train with the club. Eventually, Austin obliged, and when he arrived, he was sold on Totten's spirit, ambition, and their impressive facilities. It had been a tough couple of years at Swindon for Austin, who had a lot of off-field issues. Swindon, that is, although also Austin to a certain extent, who revealed his own ADHD diagnosis over the summer. But dropping back into the non-league game after 15 years of professional football has reignited his love of the sport, according to the man himself. Totton, who narrowly missed out on promotion last season, are currently second in the Southern League Premier Division South, 6 points behind league leaders Merthyr Town. Only one team goes up automatically from the Southern League Premier Division South, and another one through the playoffs. I couldn't find any definitive data as to how many goals Austin has actually scored this season, but he isn't listed among the division's 12 highest scorers, so we can safely assume that it is fewer than 14. Shout out to Merthyr Town's 25-year-old talisman Ricardo Reis, though, who has struck nearly 30 times already this season. If he keeps going at that rate, he could be the next Charlie Austin. 6th, Radja Nainggolan. Charlie Austin was a brilliant goalscorer who had one extraordinary season in the Premier League, but it would be fair to say that there is a step up in class from 7th to 6th. At his very best, I don't think that it is any exaggeration at all to say that Radja Nainggolan could be one of the most effective midfielders in the world. Born in Belgium but handed a football education in Italy from the age of 17, Nainggolan also started out in the relatively humble surroundings of Piacenza in Serie B. Moves to Cagliari, Roma, and eventually Inter Milan followed, as Nainggolan became one of the early poster boys of Belgium's golden generation. Nicknamed Il Ninja, at his peak, which came at Roma, Nainggolan was a force of nature. He made the Serie A Team of the Year for 4 successive seasons, and in the 2016-17 season, there weren't too many midfielders better than him in all of Europe. Everything everywhere all at once, Nainggolan had a tremendous engine, he was both quick and powerful, had excellent technique, a lovely way to pass, and he could even chip in with a fair few goals. Incredibly versatile, but probably most effective in a box-to-box role owing to his wide range of skills, there were similarities between Nainggolan and fellow Serie A star Arturo Vidal. Also like Vidal, Nainggolan was probably past his best, and certainly failed to produce his best football after joining Inter Milan, sending his career into quite a rapid tailspin. Already exiled from the Belgium team ahead of the 2018 World Cup, aged only 29, owing to a fallout with head coach Roberto Martinez, for all of his strengths, again, just like Vidal, Nainggolan had some pretty fatal weaknesses. Relentless on a match day, Nainggolan was accused of not always bringing that same intensity to training, not always looking after his diet, and enjoying 1 or 2 nights out and, by his own admission, also smoking regularly, even at the peak of his powers. Both Nainggolan and Vidal were built different, outrunning, outfighting, and outplaying world-class athletes, even while not living the life of an athlete themselves. Antonio Conte, allegedly, used to make Juventus players go on grueling runs in order to punish them if he heard that Vidal and co had been on a night out, before scrapping the punishment entirely because, whilst everyone else would be dead on their feet, even with a hangover, Vidal would still be at the front of the pack, and not even struggling. Time catches up with everyone though. Vidal, age 37, rejoined his boyhood club Colo-Colo in 2024, and many Chileans feel it is time for him to be dropped by the national team. Meanwhile, Nainggolan, following stints in Italy's Serie C and in Indonesia, playing for a team owned by the Indonesian National Police, joined Lockeran Temsa in Belgium's Challenger Pro League, formerly the 1B Pro League and the Proximus League, in January 2025. 6 days after joining the club, Nainggolan was arrested by Belgian police in an investigation into cocaine smuggling in the port of Antwerp. The Brussels prosecutor's office said, and I quote, The investigation concerns alleged acts of importation of cocaine from South America to Europe via the port of Antwerp and its redistribution in Belgium. End quote. Thankfully, Nainggolan has been released on bail, and he has played 6 games and scored 1 goal for Lokeren Temsa since then. I must admit, Lokeren is a place and a club with a special place in my heart, as it is where I watched Hull City compete in one of only 2 European away days that we've ever played in the 2014-15 Europa League qualifying campaign. I mean, we lost and got pelted with bricks by Feyenoord fans who turned up for some unknown reason, but, you can't have it all. Unfortunately, the team that beat us over 10 years ago, KSC Lokeren Oost-Vlaanderen, went bankrupt and were dissolved in 2020. So I guess we had the last laugh on that front. And the team that accused cocaine smuggler Radja Nainggolan plays for is a Phoenix club called KSC Lokeren Temsa, who are less than 5 years old. Currently 9th in Belgium's second tier, Lokeren have an average attendance of 2,689, which is still the 5th highest in the division, but it is a far cry from the Stadio Olimpico or the San Siro. 5th, Kazuyoshi Miura. Chances are, the vast majority of you will have heard of Kazuyoshi Miura. He is recognised as being the oldest professional footballer in the world, age 58, and indeed, the oldest of all time, holding records as the oldest professional of all time, the oldest professional goalscorer of all time, and the longest professional career span, you guessed it, of all time. Touching 60 now, Miura is lauded for his longevity across the globe, making him a cult hero far beyond the borders of Japan. What doesn't get talked about quite as often is the fact that, though he has been contracted to Yokohama FC, who compete in Japan's top-flight J-League since 2005, so for the last 20 years, he has spent the last 3 seasons out on loan. In 2022, he went on loan to Suzuka Point Getters in Japan's 4th tier. He then spent 2 seasons on loan with Alves in the 2nd tier of Portuguese football, and he is currently out on loan again, this time with Atletico Suzuka, also in Japan's 4th tier, in the excellently named Japan Football League, or JFL. It does exactly what it says on the tin. In fact, in the last 17 years, Miura has only actually played 5 games of top-flight football. I mean, granted, he was already 41 years old 17 years ago, but I'm just saying, I think he gets a bit of an easy ride. I am joking, of course. What kind of psychopath do you take me for? It is an incredible achievement. Although, it is worth noting, Japan is now so old that 58 is considered quite young. That is a Gen Zer in Japan. Soon their actual national team will have an average age of about 75. And the Japanese also have the highest life expectancy of any nation on Earth. So, really, a 58-year-old Japanese person is more like a 45-year-old American. Miura, a bit like Ryan Giggs or Stanley Matthews, finds himself in the unusual predicament of being best known by some people because of his age and longevity, rather than his ability and remarkable achievements within the game. Admittedly, Giggs has gone some way towards rectifying that, attempting to be best known for being a terrible human being rather than either of the above. Miura perhaps wasn't quite in the same calibre of player as Giggs or Matthews, but at his peak, he was one of the greatest Japanese players of all time. He bagged 30 goals in his most prolific campaign, shortly after returning to Japan from a stint at Genoa in Serie A. He thrice made the J-League Team of the Year, as well as the league's 20th and 30th anniversary teams, and he won the Asian Footballer of the Year award in 1992. 35 years since making his international debut, Miura is not only still playing, which is wild enough in of itself, he is still Japan's 2nd highest scorer of all time. Having half-decent mobility at 58 is laudable, let alone still playing competitive football, but as one of Japan's all-time greats, now playing for a team in the lowly 4th tier of Japanese football, with an average attendance of just 729, Kazuyoshi Miura is both a legend of the game and therefore a perfect candidate for a spot in this 7. 4th, Andy Carroll. Andy Carroll is only 36, but after the amount of injuries that he's had, he probably has a physiology older than Kazuyoshi Miura. It is a credit to the Big Geordie, therefore, that he is still playing competitive football. paid a reported £80,000 to £100,000 a week at Liverpool and West Ham for the best part of a decade, other players would have hung up their boots at 30, which is when Carroll's contract with the Hammers expired. Instead, Carroll rejoined his boyhood club Newcastle, where he was thwarted by injuries once again, briefly dropped down to the Championship with Crace's club Reading, where he was reportedly paid just £1,000 a week, and then he made a late move abroad, joining Ligue 2 side Amiens in 2023. In terms of Carroll's superstar credentials, don't get me wrong, he wasn't the best player involved in Liverpool's January 2011 deadline day double deal for him and Luis Suarez, but I do often feel as though his capabilities, at his best, are all too often overlooked. Carroll most assuredly wasn't worth £35 million in 2011, or ever, but he was a rising star, having scored 11 goals in only 19 Premier League games for a newly promoted Newcastle United team during the first half of the season alone, earning himself an England debut. The move to Liverpool, who would soon transition to playing a fluid, possession-based style of football under Brendan Rodgers, never really suited Carroll. It's no surprise that Mario Balotelli and Ricky Lambert, two more brainless signings, also didn't work out at Anfield, and, combined with injuries, Carroll faced many of the same problems. As a big, powerful target man though, who you could play off and hand crosses into, Carroll was, and I don't use this term lightly, world class. He is genuinely one of the most aerially dominant centre-forwards I've ever seen, and if it wasn't for injuries, with a team built around him under Sam Allardyce at West Ham, I think that he could have been pretty special. Unfortunately, he only made 20-plus league appearances in one season after permanently joining the Hammers, and in that one, despite having just come back from a medial ligament tear in his knee, Carroll was very effective, averaging a goal once every 159 minutes as West Ham finished 7th in their final season at Upton Park. Are we content with his inclusion now? Yes? Alright, let's move on. No? I'm just going to have to go on regardless. Sorry. Carroll scored 4 goals in 31 games for an Amiens team that finished 8th in Ligue 2 last season, but in September, he dropped all the way down to the amateur 4th tier of French football, despite joining a much bigger club. Bordeaux had just lost their professional licence and been forced to start out again in Step 4 in France, for reasons covered in a 2-part documentary series on this channel, and that was a challenge which excited the former England international. Paid a reported €3,500 a month by Bordeaux, which is pretty much the average salary in France. It's actually very slightly higher. Carroll says that it costs him more to play for the club than they are paying him, which does suggest some pretty atrocious budgeting on his part. I mean, what's he doing? Commuting to training from Romford? But nonetheless, it is always a breath of fresh air to see a footballer continue playing, as is the case with almost everyone in this 7, due solely to their love of the game. Carroll has scored 8 goals in 12 games since joining Bordeaux, who currently sits second in Group B of the Championnat National 2, as they look to begin the long climb back to the top table of French football. Third, Nabil Dirar. Nabil Dirar will always hold a special place in my heart, a bit like Loughran, because on FIFA 13 he was an absolute speed demon who could shot back inside and dispatch like prime Iron Robben. The whole City faithful on career mode had never had it so good. In real life, which is arguably more relevant in this instance, Dirar didn't quite inspire the Tigers to a Champions League crown as he did for me, but he spent 5.5 years starring for Monaco, won a Ligue 1 title, a Belgian Pro League title with Club Bruges, and he won 48 caps for Morocco. After lifting a Ligue 1 title, Dirar left Monaco, spending the next 4 years with Turkish giants Fenerbahce. Stints at Super League rivals Kasim Pasha, Chabab Mohammedeya in his native Morocco, and Danish 3rd Division club Ishoy IF followed. Dirar joined Ishoy, who are Nordsjælland's feeder club and whose name I would be amazed if I was getting right, in the 4th tier of Danish football in November 2022, signing a contract until 2024. Perhaps he hoped that if he could regain his fitness and find some form, following a string of injuries at previous clubs, he might be able to catch the eye of Nordsjælland's first team at some stage. Unfortunately though, less than 2 months after signing for Ishoy, and yet to make his debut, Dirar departed by mutual consent and retired from football, coming to the conclusion that his calf injuries had become insurmountable. 6 months later, however, he reversed that decision, joining FC Schifflang 95 in Luxembourg's national division. Dirar did find some fitness there, but he was powerless to prevent Schifflang from being relegated from the top flight of a country of just 666,000 people. Positively enormous compared to his former nation of Monaco, I suppose. Last summer, Dirar resisted the temptation to hang up his boots for a second time and instead signed for KF Gostivari in the Macedonian First League. Currently third in the league and in title contention, Gostivari are arguably the smallest club in the division, with a division-low average attendance of just 117 this season. Now aged 39, Dirar stayed fit for long enough to make 19 appearances in North Macedonia so far this season, but I regret to inform you that he is currently sidelined with another injury setback. That won't stop this man though. He could tear both ACLs and lose an arm for all he cares. He is coming for Kazuyoshi Miura's record regardless. Second, Valeri Bojinov. There's no good reason to leave the Balkans, unless an ethnic war of annihilation breaks out. That's my motto. And second to third in this 7 only takes us from North Macedonia to neighbouring Bulgaria. Valeri Bojinov, some of you may recall, was once among the most highly rated young forwards in Europe. Born in Bulgaria, Bojinov's mother and stepfather weren't only footballers, they both represented Bulgaria at senior international level. His stepdad, Sasho Angelov, won 11 caps for Bulgaria's golden team of the 1990s, but when Bojinov was only 12 years old, his family relocated to Malta. At the age of 14, he was spotted by scouts from Lecce while playing on the island and brought to Italy. Less than 2 years later, Bojinov made his senior debut as a 15-year-old, becoming the youngest foreign player to ever have appeared in Serie A. Over 20 years on, that is a record that he still holds, and he remains the 8th youngest player, including Italians, ever to have appeared in Italy's top flight. Lecce were relegated to Serie B in Bojinov's debut campaign, but in his second season back in the big time, still aged only 18, he scored a tremendous 14 goals in 23 games. That was in the mid-2000s, when Serie A was still arguably the best league on the planet, and certainly still had some of the sternest offences. Bojinov was snapped up by Fiorentina and made his senior debut for Bulgaria, scoring in his first start against the Republic of Ireland. Though Bojinov never quite realised his enormous early potential, becoming a bit of a party animal, marrying a Playboy model, and turning into one of the game's all-time great journeymen, he still won nearly 50 caps for Bulgaria and played for the likes of Manchester City, Juventus, and Sporting Club de Portugal. Since 2012, however, Bojinov has had 19 different clubs in the space of 13 years. That's nearly 1.5 clubs a season, and it has taken Bojinov to China, Serbia, Switzerland, and Croatia. The 39-year-old, who won his last cap for Bulgaria in 2015, has been playing football back home since 2020, and just this year, he joined FC Rilske Sportis Samokov. I would be amazed, once again, if my pronunciation of that wasn't absolutely spot on. FC Rilske Sportis Samokov, because, why not mangle it twice? Compete in the Elitbet Third League, otherwise known as the Third Amateur Football League, which, as its name would suggest, is the entirely amateur and regionally subdivided third tier of Bulgarian football. I can find absolutely no information as to how he's getting on or whether he's even made his debut yet, because it is Bulgaria's third amateur football league, but that only strengthens my belief that he fully deserves to feature. First, Cristiano Ronaldo. Undoubtedly a former superstar, given his 5 Champions League titles, 5 Ballon d'Or crowns, and November 2006 Premier League Player of the Month award. Not a lot of people know this, but at the grand old age of 40, Cristiano Ronaldo is actually still playing professional football in something called the Saudi Pro League. Nah, I'm just kidding, of course. About him being first, that is. He is actually still playing professional football, and if this is how you're finding out, then I guess it would have been a reasonable inclusion. First, João. Widely recognised as having the shortest name of any player to appear in the Premier League, João's actual name is João Alves da Assis Silva, which isn't that short at all, and personally, I think just calling yourself Zhou in a very transparent effort to try and steal Rob Lee's hard-fought crown as having the shortest name of any player in the Premier League is incredibly cynical and deserves to be called out. Zhou, much like Kazuyoshi Miura, has been getting away with this behaviour for far too long. Actually, I've just checked, and it turns out that Rob Lee's full name is actually Robert Martin Lee, so turns out that he's a fraud too. Forget that I ever said anything, they're all as bad as each other. Manchester City's club record signing, before the Emiratis acquired the club, brought in for a reported £19 million from CSKA Moscow. That record wouldn't last long, as Sheikh Mansour rolled into town during the same summer that Zhou arrived in 2008, signing fellow Brazilian Robinho on deadline day for nearly twice as much. Zhou isn't all that fondly remembered in England. He only scored 1 goal in 21 Premier League games for the Citizens, and only a slightly more impressive 5 in 27 on loan at Everton, but don't let that, or his naming shenanigans, colour your entire impression of his career. Sensational for CSKA Moscow, hence his £19 million price tag. After leaving the Etihad, Zhou became a talismanic figure once again back home in Brazil, scoring prolifically for Atletico Mineiro and Corinthians, as well as in the UAE, China, and Japan. Age 37 now, Zhou has scored more than 200 career goals, like Charlie Austin, in addition to winning 20 caps for Brazil. Unlike Charlie Austin, having initially announced his retirement following a very brief stint in Saudi Arabia, Zhou has basically played in every cash grab league there is going at this point. He came out of retirement after 11 months to join Amazonas, who had just won promotion to the Campeonato Brasileiro Serie B. Following 17 appearances for Amazonas, Zhou joined Itabarito in the summer, a virtually brand new football club founded in 2022, who now compete in the 4th tier Campeonato Brasileiro Serie D. That made Zhou the perfect candidate to not only feature in but top this 7, but in one last act of spite and cynicism from this wretched Brazilian snake, in between me planning this video and getting round to writing and finally recording it, Zhou left Itabarito and became a free agent, thus rendering him ineligible for this 7 and making me look like a total idiot.
I want this man to be no more and get his business shut down, because no one speaks to me like that.
Well, joke's on you, Zhou, because I can just replace you with former Atletico Mineiro stars Patrick, Serginho, or Brian, all of whom also play for Itabarito, who appear to be trying to build a Mineiro veterans team in the 4th tier of Brazilian football. Anyway, that is it for today's video, but thank you all very much, as ever, for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed this series, as you can tell, otherwise I wouldn't be making a 5th installment of it, would I? But it combines well-known players with lesser-known clubs, and, some quite feel-good stories. Apart from Zhou, that scumbag. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button if that was the case. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And of course, it goes without saying, even though I've said it hundreds of times, haven't I? But make sure that you are subscribed both to this channel, HITC Sevens, and also my second channel, Alfie Potts Armour, both of which should be about to appear on your screens now, along with a couple of videos, one from each of those channels, that you might enjoy watching after this one. You can also find me on various social media platforms and elsewhere on the internet, should you, be a real super fan, all of which there will be links to down in the video description below. Cheers, and have a magnificent day.